Hello, and welcome back to Practically Political. I'm Dave Spencer. It's great to have you with us. I'm joined by my two partners in crime, Ashley Davis and Kurt Bardella. It is Thursday, July 24th. And God, that's one thing I hate about Trump. There's just nothing in the news these days. Oh, well, maybe we might have to give at least a perfunctory nod to what do we call it, Epstein Gate, or God knows, who knows what all the names are. But I have to say that I've been chortling a little bit to see the president flail, but he's really a victim of his own success, as I see it. That no one's been more successful at pushing all these conspiracy theories, mostly about the election of 2020, but also about January 6th and God knows how many other things. And so obviously the president can never say, imagine if he said, oh, I take it back, the 2020 election was fair, or January 6th really was unpatriotic. Half his base would revolt, but that's essentially what he's doing here. And I think on top of it, it's exacerbated by, I don't think those of us who aren't involved with QAnon and all this wacky stuff, I don't think we can appreciate how much this whole pedophilia thing was a central issue. We remember Hillary with Pizzagate in DC, and I think somebody went in there and actually shot up some pizza parlor. So this really hits home. And I don't see any sign of it dying down. And I've never seen the president so desperate. I think that this is the first time he's been in this situation. And he hit, one thing with Donald Trump, as we've known, there's no such thing as rock bottom. And he showed it again by bringing up Obama, even though Obama had said in December of 2016 that there's no proof that Russia's attempted meddling actually changed the outcome of the election, but that doesn't matter. He's treasonous. Let's arrest him. Of course, I wish they would try to arrest him. I think that would be great theater. But anyway, so I will turn it over to my two comrades because I know you folks have a lot of thoughts here. But this is really something. Is it going away? How serious is this? And also, what would you do if you were in Trump's shoes? How do you make this go away? Why don't we start with you, Kurt?
Well, it's interesting because there's so many layers to this, right? There's once you traffic in conspiracy theory, which Donald Trump's been doing ever since he came on the political scene with the original Birthergate conspiracy,
Of course.
you
Right.
create this machine that pumps it out, that spoon feeds it to your most ardent supporters, and you begin to distort reality. It's almost inevitable when you traffic in that so frequently and so successfully, even that at some point you're on the opposite side of that. And that's why, in this case, this Epstein issue is so potent. This is not the creation of the legacy media. This is not the creation of Democrat operatives or some left-wing progressive, conspiracy theory to get Donald Trump. This was started and given air and oxygen by the MAGA world. Like it was JD Vance, it was Dan Bongino, it was Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly and all of these voices that have taken up such residence in the political conversation that drove the Epstein narrative for so long, that now that you're in power and now that promises were made about transparency, all of a sudden you do this 180 to the point where you're even willing to file a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against Rupert Murdoch to try to silence the Wall Street Journal's reporting. Um, it's like this isn't going to go away because the people who propped it up and the audience who consumed it more than any audience in the world were your most ardent supporters. This wasn't Rachel Maddow. This wasn't Democrat operative Stephanie Cutter. This wasn't an everyday juggernaut of progressive media or AOC. It was Republicans that were talking about this exhaustively for years. And so it's not going to go away. And the more information comes out, the worse it really looks for Donald Trump.
Well, and before you respond, Ashley, let me just interject. This is the first time. I would love to know the last time. It's been years since a successful discharge petition was
Petition.
put forward. In other words, where they can get the votes to override the speaker's lack of desire to bring a bill to the floor, and I think they've got the votes this time. And to me, let's hide, let's send home Congress early. I think that's a really bad mistake, just as I think the whole Obama thing is a really bad mistake that's going to come back and bite him. But what say you, Ashley?
No, I just, there's something here, and I don't know what I always say this to you too, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
But there's something here we don't know, because there's absolutely no reason that he's not putting these documents out unless, and I don't even think it's about him, to be honest with you,
So,
because, I mean, he's been convicted. I mean, like, what else can he have against him, even if it's women or anything else?
well, hasn't been pedophilia yet. That's one of the few
True, but I mean, there's so much
things.
that's been leaked about he and Epstein being friends already. I don't know. There's nothing there about
Mhm.
that. If there is something with a child, which by the way, I do always want to say when I talk about this, we have to remember the victims here. I mean, this is obviously political theater, but that's the most important part. So I don't know what it is, and I get questioned about this all the time, but the fact that the speaker is doing what the speaker's doing, in regards to, obviously the tensions were too high. First of all, everyone's tired of each other here. We've been in session way too long with a lot of contentious issues over the last 6 months. So it's time for everyone to go home. But you even saw the speaker's conversation or talking points switch over the last week when he said before, yes, everything should come out because I think he was thinking what the MAGA base is saying. Yes, everything was good. Then when he said this week was everything should come out that isn't impactful of somebody that's innocent. And so I don't know if it's victims' names they aren't putting out there and if they put certain people's names out. I just there's some disconnect that I think they need to discuss because otherwise it looks like we're hiding the Republicans or Trump or whatever are hiding the ball, which makes the story even worse. And going back to both Dave and Kurt, what you said, I mean, I this is what happens with conspiracies, right? When there's a conspiracy, and it was of his own making, it was of the MAGA movement's making. But on the Obama thing, just to kind of and I'm not big on that conspiracy either. The only thing that stuck out to me yesterday, and just because of my experience with National Security Council, the fact that he called a National Security Council meeting, which only the president can obviously do, and then that's such a serious, serious meeting to call. I mean, usually it's for international incidents or international significance. That's the only thing, and I'm not saying it was wrong or right. That was just the thing to me that was just if they did think Russia was involved at that point when he called it, I mean, it was very serious that he did call that meeting.
Well, let me just
I mean,
respond to that because I think there is no doubt that Russia tried to meddle in the election.
mhm,
And if you don't believe me, just ask then Senator Rubio, who was chairman of the Intelligence Committee,
yep.
and put out a lengthy, I thought, very thoughtful report, back in the days when Marco Rubio was thoughtful, and saying essentially that yes, Russia tried to influence the election. I think that's the reason the security meeting was called, but there's no proof that they were actually able to do so. And I think that one of the great things about our election system is that it is so decentralized, right? You have what 16,000 different districts or something. So it's not like there's one big
Oh,
central.
I remember during the Florida recount, just in the Florida state alone. Oh,
By the way, I'm so glad you brought that up. Florida is a model for the country. When they had that, punch out, who doesn't want to punch out Pat Buchanan, right? That was the joke. But,
that's true.
but who after
Forgot
that,
about that.
Florida got their act together. They know the vote is counted. They're in Eastern time. The polls close at 7. By 9 or 10 p.m. that night who won. And frankly,
Yep.
there's no reason other states can do that. Now, some states, in fairness, like Pennsylvania, have been hampered because the legislature passed a law banning the counting of mail-in votes until election day, which is absurd. The only reason I see that is done is to make it go on longer, and that is more chance to contest it. But still, having said that, a lot of states, Nevada, for example, that last election in 22 with Kathleen Cortez Masto that took like 3 extra days to count. It's just inexcusable. And even though the Republicans weren't or people weren't crying fraud, they did make a fair point that it's just an embarrassment for our democracy that it takes so long to count the vote. But I think back to Trump, I do think that there's some wrong nerve that has been struck here. I don't know whether he feels this is finally too far in terms of what is going to be revealed, or there's some financial information. There's something that's really getting up in his craw, but I don't know.
But do you think it's I mean, it's listen, we're all speculating. I don't even know if it's about him. I think I don't know, but I think it's like something even broader. I don't know the answer to what I'm asking, but obviously we all know many of the people that are in the quote so-called list, whether it's Bill Clinton or Trump or Steve Jobs, not Steve Jobs, Microsoft.
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. I mean, that stuff's already been leaked, and I
Right.
don't think that would stop him from not putting it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think seems so visceral to me that I think there's something in there that he's afraid of. I'm not saying that he's going to be accused of being a pedophilia, but it could be something financial. It could be, I don't know. I've just never seen him, particularly in the second term, where so much of this has been worn. He successfully lowered the bar. So people just
Mhm.
shrug at stuff that would have other presidents out in days. There's something different here. So, and I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
What do you think, Kurt?
Well, what we do know is this: Donald Trump cares more about self-interest than any politician in the history of mankind. We know that they are taking hit after hit after hit without actually offering any rational explanation for why they're incurring these type of hits. Um, sometimes the most obvious answer is the right answer. Like, there's something in here that's bad for Donald Trump that he doesn't want to get out, and so he's doing everything he can to make sure that doesn't happen. They've already lied multiple times about this. They said that they weren't, the attorney general didn't brief him about this or reveal that he was even in the files. Turns out that was a lie, as Wall Street Journal reported. Attorney general did brief about this, that there was an effort to find anything related to Donald Trump in it, and you know, the idea that Trump is going out there claiming this is a Democrat hoax and a media smear campaign, uh, that reaction just tells me intuitively, like, okay, well, you're going back to your greatest hits, but it doesn't add up with all the information that we have. You are afraid. You would rather keep taking news cycle after news cycle after news cycle of just getting slaughtered here, then let whatever it is get out, which you could have done on day one, by the way. I mean, he
Well, what
literally
does
is
that
the
tell
president of the
you?
United States. He could do
What does
whatever
that
he
tell you?
wants. Tells me there's some, like, he's protecting himself. That's the only reason to do this. Donald Trump
But
doesn't care
Or
about
his
protecting anybody
family,
else. He
or his
doesn't care about
family.
anybody else. I don't think
He
he
cares
gives a
about his
crap.
kids.
I don't believe that for a second, but
no, I
Oh,
don't.
um,
stop it.
I don't believe for a second. I think he'd sell them down the river if to protect himself. I think that he's a typical narcissist personality disorder, character, and people who have NPD disorder do not have the ability to have that type of empathy and emotional connection that normal people do. And I don't think Trump cares one bit about anyone but himself.
I don't agree with you, but that's fine. We can agree to disagree. I think he cares about kids, his grandkids.
So
I don't
is
know.
there
He didn't have a problem, I guess we'll say allegedly, sleeping with other people while his wife was pregnant with this kids. I mean, I don't think he cares.
so I guess I'd love to hear from both of you. Is there going to be a breaking point on this at some point if he just gets hammered and hammered? Because
Well, it's
again,
happening. It happened last night in the Oversight Committee when Republicans
Yeah,
joined Democrats to issue a subpoena to get all this
yeah.
information out there. Like, it's coming to a head. The Oversight Committee also, sent a letter to Maxwell saying, "Hey, August 11th, we want you to testify." Like, this
Wonder
is going
what
to come
that's
to a
gonna
head.
what do you think that's gonna so what remind me what happened there, guys. She had a plea deal, and then
Hmm.
it was taken away, right?
Right.
So where is she in jail? Here?
Oh, I don't know which jail she's in.
No, but I mean, she's in the States.
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
she'll come back here. They offered her, I'm assuming, or they're gonna offer her some sort of plea deal. So she's going to testify.
Well, she's going to use the specter of testifying publicly to leverage a better deal
Yeah,
from the Justice Department.
yeah.
Yeah, I think well, it'll be very.
But I don't know where this ends, Dave, going back to your question. I mean, the problem is with this more than anything as well is it's a very slow news cycle. I mean,
Yeah,
if you think about even yesterday what was announced with Japan,
Oh yeah, the
the
trade deal. Yeah.
EU supposedly is like close. One, it's not even really moving the markets much one way or the other.
Yeah.
And no one cares. I mean, like, us that watch business in the markets care, but I mean, like, general public is on vacation and, they're
Mm.
hearing about Epstein.
Well, I think it'll be very interesting to see, but I'm wondering if there's going to be a point. But so far, I've never seen him, which is again makes me realize or think that there's something going on for him personally. I've never seen him be willing to take this many shots and not acquiesce somehow. The whole taco thing hasn't come into play here, so they must be hiding something. But the other thing I wanted to ask you folks about was the whole Jerome Powell thing, because I believe that all of us feel that it's really the bond market that sets the tone, and that the bond market was starting to approach a meltdown when all these tariffs came out, and apparently Scott Bessent talked him down from the cliff, and now you have August 1st as the new deadline, and the markets are essentially shrugging it off. I think they're saying, he's going to back down. He always does. NASDAQ and S&P just recently hit new highs. So what's the end game here? At some point, is he just going to creep along, and instead of 90 deals, maybe he gets 10 deals and he says, okay, we're done, claim victory. And also with Powell, he's making all these threats. I've heard a lot of people say, well, the best thing would be for Powell to resign because that puts pressure on Trump to appoint somebody who's not an apparatchik. Because again, if there's ever a time where people don't feel we have an independent Fed, that's when things really start to crater. If there's one part of our rule of law that I think is most sacred when it comes to finance, it is that. So, or should Powell make him come up with an excuse? Apparently I've heard they're doing some kind of audit of the Fed, which gets back to that apparently 700 million cost overrun they had or something. I don't know. They're digging here, but
Well, it's really the $250 billion renovation or whatever it is. But,
yeah,
I think,
I think
Dave, what
it's over budget by a third or something. But
yeah.
what do you
I
folks think?
think I think well, first of all, let's remember nothing's gonna happen in the meeting in July. I'm
Right,
talking about Pat for the Fed.
right. They're going to hold.
Most finance people believe they're gonna cut rates in September, at least something. So
Mhm.
then he's done in May. I mean, unless he's just completely tired of oversight committee, Senate banking committee just constantly going after him for the next 6 months. I don't know if he resigns, and then there's gonna be someone in there by May, say June. So there's really not that much time left, but, reading all the papers this morning after, like, the Japan deal, um, uh, I don't know if any other deal is gonna move the market besides China, one
Mm.
way or the other. I mean, maybe the EU a little bit, but I don't think, I don't think the market cares about Indonesia.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I have to imagine that there are so many voices that are begging Powell to not resign,
Yeah.
because of the stabilizing effect it would have in terms of devaluing of the United States dollar. That would certainly happen. Like, if the Fed is perceived to have lost all independence and is just a political propaganda arm, the way that would disrupt uh, American economic policy is it cannot be overstated. And so any company that is in the market would be begging him to do not resign, do not give in to the pressure, do not do whatever it takes to stay in this job because you cannot step aside. Um, and which isn't to say that Donald Trump won't just try to outright fire him and take that test all the way to the Supreme Court. We have seen time and again this Supreme Court has pretty much ruled that presidential authority is equivalent to executive fiat, and so um, it, I guarantee you Trump has as there are people trying to talk him out of firing uh, Powell. I think that there are times where Trump has gotten to that point where like I'm going to fire him. I'm doing it today, and he's been talked down. I think the longer this Epstein thing goes, and the worse it gets for him, the more he's going to be looking to do something else that will change the story, frankly. And ultimately, the timing for Powell, it might just come down to the PR optics that Trump is battling that have nothing to do with Powell. but he might be the sacrificial lamb to try to change the story.
And
But can
also,
you do that in August with the markets? I mean, like, will it matter in August, or does he have to
He,
wait till September?
he can do it whatever he wants. I mean,
No,
I
I
mean,
know, but I just mean from a changing the narrative.
well, because the thing is that he can't do it unless he has cause, right? And so I think that that's the strategy behind this cost overrun is that's going to give him because of
Yeah.
lack of due diligence or abdicating your financial duty or whatever, you know, line they're going to come up.
Mhm.
That would be an excuse to fire him. What worries me also is that even if he doesn't fire him, but there's so much pressure being put on that it almost makes every decision the Fed makes either way look somewhat political. And that's what worries me because you've never had a president piling on a Fed chair like this. He didn't even do it the first. He appointed Powell into it only a year and a half into his first term. So for the last 2.5 years, you couldn't really say anything because it was his guy. But the whole thing does make me really, really nervous because there are a few things that you just can't mess with. And the bond market is one of those things. But Ashley, you were gonna add on something.
No, I think you're exactly right that they're getting I'm sure they had an entire team trying to figure out how they can fire him with cause, and this building, this 2.5 billion or whatever is what it is. And I mean, to Powell's defense, I mean, he probably has a COO that's overlooking that. It is the federal government, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's like he probably doesn't
what
have
government
personally
renovation
anything
has
to.
ever come in on
Right.
budget?
He
Yeah.
has nothing personally probably to do with it, but he does as the boss. I mean, it could be a cause.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's going to be never a dull moment, but so far, the markets are holding in, and that's always something that I wonder about. At what point is the whole assumption about taco gonna trump all his chickens out, gonna fall through? And I guess that's something that
You
we
love that, Dave.
yeah,
Tacos.
I think it's one of the and I loved his reaction when he first heard about it, but
What did he say?
he said, "Oh, really? That's how I never heard that before." And it was kind of, I think,
He's probably like, "That's pretty catchy." I mean, he
yeah, I
has to have
think
some
that's it. I
respect
think
for
it was a
whoever did it.
of incredulity because one of the things he's really good at is coming up with nicknames and catchphrases.
Totally.
Part of it was like, it was like when the Austin Powers and the Mini Me came out. It's like, why didn't I
Yeah.
think of that?
Yeah.
But
Hey,
then
by the
also part of
way,
it was then it sinks in. It's like, oh, they're offending me. So I think it was a combination of incredulity, disbelief, and a little, incredulity, envy, and a little disbelief. So, but anyway, well, I think we'll have to leave it there.
well, no, I wanna have a moment of silence because of my Pittsburgh roots to
Oh,
Ozzy Osbourne
oh yeah,
and Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan. Yes, Hulk Hogan, who
They're like our
perspective, of course, you think of
generation or my generation.
WWE was really a transformational figure in sports. Obviously, got a lot more in. I know, Kurt, you've been someone that's obviously done a lot more in that, pardon the pun, that ring than we have. So please, why don't you close us by giving a few thoughts about Hulk
I-
Hogan,
If if
American
there
icon.
is if there is a Mount Rushmore of sports entertainment, Hulk Hogan's the first name that belongs on that list. What we know today as the global success of professional wrestling is completely attributed to Hulk Hogan, who came along and was the very first wrestler to break out in pop culture. When you think of wrestling, you think of Hulk Hogan. Even if you're not a fan of wrestling, you've heard of the name Hulk Hogan. Um, and he has for better or worse, I mean, he stood the test of time. And, I mean, I know a lot of us in today's society think of him from speaking at the Republican National Convention and some of the controversies he's had. But in the 80s and 90s, there was no bigger name in sports entertainment than Hulk Hogan. And, I think by and large, that's probably how he'd be remembered. Those of us who grew up watching him every Saturday morning saying, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, brother. You know, there are very few
That's when we
people.
had like 3 stations.
Right.
Right.
I mean, there are very few people who transform an entire industry. Hulk is one of those guys who successfully did that.
Mhm.
And I think ultimately that's his legacy.
Excellent. Well,
And
that
he
is
had a heart attack, Kurt? Like, so it was
Or
unexpected.
allegedly, yeah, it was unexpected.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys, they live hard and fast lives. It's
Yep.
like the rock stars. 76 is actually pretty old, where what Ozzy Osbourne was,
Hmm.
sort
Yeah,
of some
for the life
of
that they all lived back in the day. I mean,
Yeah.
they literally they lived what they sang about the sex, drugs, rock and roll lifestyle. They all did that. So
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
it past
And
70 with
bats for
making
Ozzy
it
and
past
bats.
70 is an accomplishment when you live that hard for that long.
Yeah, we were talking
Yeah.
about Tom Petty the other day, and he only made it to 66, so, a
Oh,
lot of Dave
that devastated me. My
Mm.
favorite concerts ever.
he was great. I saw him a couple times too, being the concert goer that I am. Well, folks, that puts the wrap on another good episode. Thanks to my partners in crime for joining me, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We will see you on the next episode of Practically Political. Have a good one.